Today I am expanding on everything we've talked about in the previous videos. So if you haven't watched those, please watch those. And talking about how to extend our soul communication with ourselves to others. So soul to soul communication. Now, soul to soul communication can be between one living person and another living person, or a living person to a non-physical person. So in essence, a spirit, someone's loved one. That would be mediumship. So that is the difference between psychic communication and mediumship communication. And as a person who has practiced with both, they do feel very differently, but both of them are utilizing your soul senses. So your psychic senses of inner seeing, inner hearing, inner knowing, inner feeling, inner tasting, and inner smelling. This is where soul to soul communication with spirit, inner smelling and tasting comes in to play a lot more than psychic soul to soul connection. It's actually really fascinating when those psychic senses come in. So you get to develop and play around with the way spirit communicates to you in a much deeper and profounder way than psychic connections. Psychic connections could be really profound too. But for me, my experience, when I connect with spirit, they utilize all these psychic senses that I don't usually use when I'm doing psychic connections. So part of opening the psychic senses is continually communing with your own soul in that sacred space on a daily basis, if you have the time. And then in the last video, I talked about how to engage with those in waking life and ways to practice communicating with your soul through dreams, through mindfulness, through practice with setting intentions. And now I'm moving into how to practice your psychic development or your soul sense development with other people. This is where it gets fun, but this is also where it's important to have safe, sacred spaces to do the work. And this is why I do intuitive development circles. Intuitive development circles allow people to come into a safe space with other like-minded people who have the same intention, to be paired together or in large groups, be able to just have something to focus on, to read, and allow what comes up to come up and just say what you get without having to really edit and refine and be afraid of other people's reactions. When you have the freedom to express what you're getting through your soul senses, it really liberates you to just say what you get. And the more that you get out of the way of your mind and trying to censor what you're getting, the more the actual accuracy and depth of information will be. So that's why it's so important to have a place where you don't have to doubt yourself or be fearful about other people's reactions to practice this. So outside of the development circle, for those of you that may be interested in this but don't necessarily want to do a development circle, you can practice this in other ways. So, there's ways to sense energy around you without necessarily having to have another willing participant to do it. Although I do strongly encourage that just the ethical practice that if you're reading someone else's energy that they know that you are, it's just good energy hygiene to do that. But for instance, I feel like we do this, at least those of us who have ever dated, that when you date, so much of the dating experience has to do with the way the person makes you feel and the way they feel energetically and the way they carry themselves in their energy. It's so much of a non-verbal thing than we probably realize. In that situation, we're not asking them, can I psychically read you? You're just kind of naturally doing that because it's your best interest to make sure that you're engaging with someone that makes you feel safe and that you can feel safe about opening up to, right? So that's an example of when we're doing this, unconsciously or without like the intention of doing it. There's all these different psychic senses, and there's also mediumship. So there's many different levels that you can go. First, I'm going to talk about how to practice and develop soul communication on a psychic level. And it's so, so important to have this energetic hygiene practice before you do this process, that you know what your own energy feels like, so that you've been communing with your own soul for a while before you start to extend outward to read other people's energy. Because first, that helps you to discern between what's yours and what's theirs. And second, it helps you to have the energetic hygiene to let go of other people's energy. It's really easy for us to pick up other people's energy and to feel their emotions and to feel their physical pains in our body if there's many different types of empaths. And that this is really, this situation of being an empath is really what was the catalyst for me to seek psychic development, because I felt like I was just picking up on everyone's stuff and I was drowning. And I thought it was my stuff. And then when I started to learn energy healing and psychic development, I started to recognize how much of my pain and suffering was actually energy I had picked up on like a sponge. And then I gained the tools and awareness to identify when energy is not mine and how to release it and how to be present in my own energy and move throughout the day without picking up everything like a magnet. So one practice of clairsentience, like to develop clairsentience, is when you go shopping. So shopping, you're surrounded by a bunch of strangers, of other people. You can just start to practice, tuning into what everyone feels like and notice what comes up for you. So this happens to me just spontaneously, and this might happen to you if you're really psychic and intuitive. You might pass by someone that you just met and get a strong emotion that is not yours because you're just shopping and you're not really engaged deeply with anyone. And yet here comes this really strong emotion when this person passes by. That could also be mediumship too, so you got to be careful about how to discern that. Or you might see an inner image of something suddenly, that doesn't make sense to you when someone passes by, because we have auric fields around us. And when we're in close proximity, we are merging our energy together and we can gain information that way. So this is where we can be really mindful about what's mine, what's not mine, and notice what it looks like and what it feels like when someone else's information or energy comes into your field and you're perceiving it. So this is the way you can practice. So before you go shopping, especially if you're an empath, drop into your soul space, maybe in the car right before you go inside. How are you feeling emotionally? How is your body feeling? Do you have any pains in your body? What's going on for you? What is on your mind? Is there anything that you've been thinking about a lot lately? What's weighing on you? And just be really present with all of that. Do your job to run your energy and clear space and drop into your soul space so that you're clear before you go into the shopping space. Start the shopping space and just set the intention. I'm going to practice being mindful and aware of energy as I shop. Go shopping. And as you're shopping, don't necessarily focus on people and try to bring information to you, because that's kind of like you're sending psychic tentacles into other people's energy. But just move through as you normally would and notice whose energy is more intrusive than others. Some people have very huge auric fields and they expand outward and they affect other people. And some people are really reserved and contract and bring their energy inward, and you won't feel their energy as much. But when you pass them or when you look at them, you might feel that contracted feeling. So just be mindful and aware. There are so many things that can happen in the energetic exchange of a shopping situation. Practicing presence, practicing mindfulness, and just being aware is going to help you to learn when energy is coming toward you and when you're receiving information from other people. You need that baseline of where your energy is and where you're at before you go, so that you know that it's not what's going on with you that's impacting you in this moment. Move throughout the shopping, do your shopping, and then my experience as an empath is when you're in line is when I end up picking up on a bunch of stuff when I don't even really want to, because I'm really close to people and I'm still and I'm not focused on anything else, just waiting, right? We're waiting. When you're waiting, you're pretty much in a receptive mode. So you're just open to whatever is going on around you. You're more present too. So when you're in line, notice how you're feeling. Are you feeling like you want to step back a little more from this person? Are you feeling drawn to a particular person? Just be inquisitive, inquire, and stay neutral. Don't judge. Don't judge what you get. Just stay neutral. And notice, are you primarily feeling other people? Are you seeing images because of people? Are you having thoughts that might not be your thoughts, like inner clairaudience? Are you just getting like insights about things that don't make sense to you from other people? Like, how are you receiving information from other people when you actively move through to be in a receptive mode? That's a really easy way to experience other people's energy and practice. The important thing is that after you have a period of time where you're receptive and you're tuning into other people's energy, or other people's energy are coming to you, that when you go back to your car, you drop back into your soul space, you do the grounding cord, you release the energy, you fill yourself back up with the energy this is the process I talked about in the previous video. You run earth and cosmic energies and clear your system so that you're back to you again before you leave. That's important. When we intentionally engage with energy to be receptive, we ultimately create a situation where we're like a psychic sponge, because we're actually wanting to be porous and to receive information. But then when we do that, if we're not doing it really consciously and we don't have the right energetic hygiene, other people's emotional states and aches and pains can come into our bodies. There's been a lot of research about mediums and how they actually struggle with autoimmune disease. And it's my theory that they struggle with autoimmune disease because they are taking on other people's energies so frequently that it disrupts their own natural rhythms. And unfortunately, you can have the best energetic hygiene ever, but if your work is just to tune into other people's energies and blend with them, like mediums do, it ultimately disrupts your own natural patterns. So it's important always to cleanse, release that energy, and fill yourself back up with good healing energy. The ways that we practice in the intuitive circle, which is the ways that I would recommend developing, because they're really the ways that you're going to get validation from other people, is to actually have strangers that you can work with. You can practice reading people that you know, but the problem with that is if you get an inner image and it's something that you already know, you might not share it, but it actually might have new information, but you're not able to unpack it in the way that you could freely with a stranger, because you already have previous information. And then it's not as credible if it's like, you're receiving information that you shouldn't have known because it's someone that you know. So this is why doing soul-to-soul connection with strangers is so important. Also, with people that we're close with, like friends, boyfriends, girlfriends, husbands, wives, children, family members that we spend a lot of time with, or that we're actually genetically tied to, our energy is already enmeshed, that it's hard to parse out what's theirs and what's mine, because you already have this enmeshed relationship with them. So meeting a stranger is the best way, and developing with a stranger is the best way. So when you go to an intuitive development circle, let's say, in physical proximity, like in person, the second someone sits in front of you and your fields interact, you'll feel all kinds of stuff happening when you engage with the soul awareness. And in an intuitive development circle, if it's just a basic reading, like there's no structure or prompting that we're doing, and it's just like, okay, sit in front of this person, ask for their permission to give them a reading, which you should always do, make a heart connection with them. So what you do is you imagine that the energetic cord is coming from your heart space and not your mind. Heart space is going to give you the cleanest, most compassionate, most loving energy and reading that you can give. So this is why we connect with the heart space to the person, and we have their permission, so they're an open book for us to read, and you just receive what you get. So you're sitting across from a stranger, made the heart connection, and let's say the first thing that you feel is like a twinge of energy in your hip, like your right hip, which is weird because you never have that. You might doubt it at first, especially when you're new to this. Oh, that's just some thing going on in my hip, push that aside. if it happens again after you push it aside, it's a pretty sure thing that it's an intuitive hit. The way that I do it, if I'm ever doubtful of something, these days I'm only really doubtful of something if it's something that I have happen to me all the time, and I'm like, is that me or is that theirs? I'll push it aside, I'll be back in a receptive state, and I'll receive it again, and I'll receive it again, and I'll receive it again, and then I'll know that it's for them. It's their information. So you can kind of wipe the slate clean, go back into the receptive mode. You know, your mind is over here, your stream of consciousness is over here, just like sacred space, and you feel the twinge in your hip again. So you just say what you get in the intuitive development circle. You say, I feel a strange sensation in my right hip. It's not painful, it's not pleasant, it's just a strange sensation. And in intuitive practice, the person that you're reading is called a sitter, and you're the reader. The sitter can respond with, yes, that makes sense. No, or I don't know. It's best when you're practicing to not have the sitter suddenly give you a bunch of information, because anything else that you receive is now not clarified through your own intuition because they've given you information. So they might say, yeah, that makes sense to me, but they're not going to say why it makes sense to you. So you can stay with that sensation in the hip, and you can unfold the information. So you say, okay, I'm in my receptive space. She says yes, I feel this in my hip. You can actually imagine that your awareness is actually like a ball of light in your body, and you can bring your awareness down to your hip, and you can see if you see anything in that area. Let's say suddenly I see an image of a little girl on a bike, and she's riding and she falls. So I just say what I'm getting, and I say how I'm getting it. I would say, as the reader, I'm seeing an image of a little girl on a bike. She's riding along, and then she falls. And then the sitter, ideally, hopefully, the hip thing is related to that image, but it might not be. So she might go, I don't know. Or she might say, yes, yeah. I hurt my hip when I was a little girl on a bike. Or it might not be related. So she'll say, okay, I don't know. I rode a bike as a little girl. The little girl might not even be her. We don't know. You're just saying what you're getting. The way that early psychic and mediumship development goes is you get information, and you want to not use any interpretation as much as possible in early stages. You want to just say what you're getting and how you're getting it. I see this, I feel this, I suddenly have this thought, I know this happened, I'm hearing someone say, I'm tasting a cupcake, I smell roses. Whatever you're experiencing, you want to say how you're experiencing it and what you're experiencing it, so that you're giving the raw data of what you're getting. And that might be really hard for someone to validate because you're not creating a story. But this is a really, really good way to just strengthen your soul senses at first. And in more advanced level, when you start to have more, either it's a symbol that you know the meaning of because it's happened before, or if you're advanced and you see, feel, hear, or know something, you can ask it questions and get deeper insights into it. So let's say I feel the pain in my hip, and as an advanced intuitive development person, I would bring my awareness to the hip, and I might say, whose pain is this? Is this pain? Yes, it's pain. Whose pain is this? And as a medium, I might say grandfather, or I might just suddenly see that it's not on her body print, it's someone else's. And I'll say, I'm picking up on someone else that you know whose hip has an issue. And as strange as it is, synchronistically, that person will know exactly what you're talking about, even if you have no idea what that means. They will know. And if she says yes, then now you see this energy of another person, and you see the hip. You might say, who is this? How is this person related? And I have a schematic in my mind of how to identify relationships to a person. So you have these inner workings that you've developed, and you start to really have these symbols to unpack the sensations, the images, and the thoughts, and the hearing that you're getting, so that you could start to really tell a story. And that's what advanced mediums and psychics do. With me, I am very clairaudient and claircognizant, so I like a lot of times when I'm doing connections with living people, I actually just get downloaded, like words and thoughts will start coming through me, and I don't really know what I'm saying or what I'm going to say next, and it almost, as easily as it comes in and it goes out, it's like I forget what I just said because I'm just being a channel, and that's what being a channel is like. That happens too. But a lot of times when I get clairvoyance, I have to use interpretation, or I have to engage with the image in order to unpack the information for it. Unless it's literally like an image of that person's memory, which is rare. That's why this development and practice and repetition helps us to discern better what these things mean. In the rare instances also with premonition, I might have a vision that's really literal, like this is going to happen. But like, you know, let's say I'm tuning into this person in front of me, and I'm going to do a clairvoyant example. So let's say I see an elephant, and I'm like, okay, I see an elephant. And this is very common in early development with people, is they'll get static images and they don't know what to do after they get an image. They say, I see an elephant, and then they feel stuck. I don't know what to do. I see an elephant. I just keep seeing an elephant. Okay, the steps that you want to do is you want to move into the space of the elephant. What does it feel like? What does it smell like? What is it doing? Who is the elephant? Who is this elephant related to her? Engage internally with this elephant to unpack the information about it. And so I'll be like, okay, I move into the elephant. I feel like the elephant is happy, and I feel the presence of a little girl, and the person I'm sitting with is a woman, and I feel like the little girl is her. And so then I'll say, I see an elephant, and I feel like this little elephant is significant to you as a girl. And then I might actually see an actual image of like a stuffed elephant that's blue and fuzzy. And then I'll say, I see a blue stuffed fuzzy elephant. And the person will be like, oh my God, that was my favorite stuffy when I was a kid. So you see, the first thing I saw was just a static image of an elephant. But if I say that, it's not going to make sense to her. So I have to unfold and pack it and blend with the elephant to understand what the elephant is saying or what it's trying to convey to me. And then I get more information. And in the early stages of development, it's going to be really hard for you to do that because you don't know what questions to ask. You don't know how to navigate the inner space, and that's what development helps with. And that's what we do in our intuitive development circles, is we do exercises to help you to learn how to engage with these inner images and inner soul senses, to learn how to extrapolate, expand, and clarify and interpret them. Interpret's not the best word, because when I say interpret, it totally brings in the mind, which is really hard in the beginning, not to just try to interpret what you're getting. But that's actually stepping out of the soul and going into the mind when you start to interpret. So you can do this with a friend. Let's say you have a friend that you want to try this with, and you just sit and drop into that sacred space and you just see what you receive. And not everything may make sense, but that's okay. You're still practicing, you're developing. Doesn't mean it's wrong. In fact, I believe that nothing anyone picks up on is wrong. At worst, it might just be your own stuff that you're picking up on. But it's through practice that you start to discern what's mine and what's yours. And I tell you what, through development, you really start to know what's yours and what's not yours. And you know what's not yours when something comes into your field. It's like the difference between rubbing a alligator and petting a soft cat. You know, it's like that feeling of, no, I know this isn't mine. I'm the soft cat. This feels alligator. And that's an example. So the better and better you get. But there's an importance of psychic hygiene with this. So again, you want to clear your energy. So after a reading, after you're in a receptive mode, whether you're doing it in waking life or you're dropping in with one person, it's important to see any connections, which might be cords, it might be like energetic tendrils that you have between you. See them as being severed and sent back with love to you and her, or him, or whoever it is you're connected to. It might be an animal, it might be a place, a person, a thing. Send energy back to them, claim your energy back, and then release anything that's not yours and ground yourself. And that's how you keep a safe container of your own energy moving forward so that you're not keeping that energy with you. A signifier that you have not separated your energy from someone or something that you have connected to psychically read is that you are continually thinking about the things that you said, about what they did, and you're ruminating. Whenever you're ruminating about a person, it's because you have psychic connections to them. And sometimes when someone's thinking about you, if you're really intuitive or you're just really empathic and you're aware of this, you'll start thinking about someone out of the blue and be like, why am I thinking about them? The chances are it's because they were thinking about you. And when you think about someone, you send an energetic tendril to them. And then they're in your field, and then you feel them and you think about them. This is why when someone is calling you and you think, oh, I should call this person, and they're actually calling you, it's because they thought about you ahead of time and they sent that energetic connection to you. And that's how you have that phone premonition. Or the example is like, they've done studies on dogs. So I have a bunch of dogs in my house. Studies on dogs where they had video cameras of dogs as their owners left, and they would take a taxi to some undetermined destination. Wherever they were, when they decided that they were going to go home, even before they got a new taxi, the dog would jump up and go to the door at that exact moment, because the person's thinking home and the dog's energy is blended with its owner, and it knows the person has thought about going home. So now the dog knows the owner is coming home. It's amazing. I interpret those results as those energy tendrils. When we think home, our energy, part of our energy is already here, because we have decided that we're going home. Part of our energy is already coming here. So the dog picks up on that. So this is why it's so important to ground and clean your energy. And the signs that you haven't done that is if you're still thinking about that situation, that person. So to move into presence, close your eyes, see if you feel any energy that's not yours in your system. Send it back with love, call your energy back, and ground. So, so important. It'll keep you healthy, and it'll keep you clear. It'll keep you present. So those are some examples of how to do the practice. There's so many examples of actual psychic exercises you can do, which are the things we do in our intuitive development circle, that I'm not going to go into detail with because it's hard to describe and explain, and it's really best to do that kind of development in an intuitive development circle with strangers, to read energy of people that you have not met. And then getting those validations is very, very helpful. The next video I'm going to talk about that, validation and how to overcome fear and doubt. Fear is like a multifaceted layer around intuition. And I have lots of theories about how there's collective fear around it, but there's also personal fear around it. And then there's also the role of like, when do I deliver or share intuitions I've had to other people? And is it safe? I want to talk about that. And then also doubt. How to overcome doubt. When we doubt what we get, we actually shut that psychic function down because we're not allowing it. We're in a state of resistance to it. And that's the exact opposite state of being in a receptive mode. The receptive mode, we're in a surrender of allowing whatever needs to come through with a state of neutrality. And when we're doubting it, we're judging it, and we're dismissing it and pushing it away. And that stops our unfoldment. It stops the psychic opening process. So I'm going to talk about those two topics in the next video because they're both very, very important, and they're both detrimental to the psychic development opening process. So again, if you have any questions, any comments, you can comment on this video, or you can private message me. I would love to speak to you about whatever it is that's up for you. I hope you're enjoying this series, and until next time, I hope you have a great day and enjoy your week. Bye.